Hello and welcome to this episode of Titan Quest Let's Play. If you remember, now we're gonna be heading towards the monster war camp in Parnassus, and damn, that's a lot of pigs just suddenly attacked us. They probably want revenge for their friend that we killed back in the caves. Yeah, not pretty. Alright, so as you remember, I've promised I'll be discussing about the offensive and defensive ability in this episode. In the last episode we talked about resistances, but in this one we're going to be talking about offensive and defensive ability. Alright then. Well, first of all, as you know that with every point in dexterity you receive a point in offensive ability and a point in defensive ability. But you also can get offensive and defensive ability via just bonuses from gear or from skills. You might be wondering, what do they actually do? Why should you get them? Well, they actually surprisingly do quite a lot, and they can make a huge difference to whether you live or die. In basic terms, offensive ability increases your chance of dealing criticals on the enemy, and defensive ability decreases the chance of enemy dealing criticals on you. But that's only the basic terms. It's not, however, the full story. The full story is a lot more complex than that. The full story is that the way offensive and defensive ability work is that they're usually offset by each other. So it works this way. It works as a difference. So for example, if you're attacking the enemy, it's your offensive ability against their defensive ability. And if the enemy is attacking you, then it's their offensive ability against your defensive ability. So it usually gets compared like that. So for example, if your offensive ability is roughly the same as the enemy's defensive ability and you're attacking, then you're just going to do a regular amount of damage. If your offensive ability is significantly higher than their defensive ability, then you'll start dealing criticals to them, and the higher, the bigger the difference, the more likely you're to deal criticals. Yeah, here this is just, I'm just applying the Hecate's Crescent to gear that we already had, so don't get confused. But yeah, and if your offensive ability is significantly smaller than their defensive ability, then not only do you not get chances of dealing criticals, you also will be dealing less damage to the enemy. They'll get like a damage reduction from you, and you'll also be having some chance of completely missing an attack. The actual figures, I don't know the actual figures, but I think it's something like once the difference gets greater than 10, like if you're, I think their defensive ability is allowed to get higher than your offensive ability by like 10 points. After that, if it gets beyond 10 points difference, then you'll start missing an attack on the enemy. So that means you'll need to get the offensive ability. Alright, I'll just pause here for a second and just say that we've gone to the war camp, and if you see the main quest is updated. All we have to do, we don't actually have to kill every single monster here, but we just have to carry on to the next part. But we are gonna kill all the monsters because we want the experience and a chance to find good gear. Why is that primitive chest standing right in the middle of the entrance? So weird. And yes, also, if you look here on the map, you can either go this way or you can go through the main entrance. We're just gonna go through the main entrance, but it doesn't matter too much. It's up to you how you want to explore. This is just something we picked up just now. And if you notice that there is significantly more satyrs around here than we've just fought. If you notice, we found one of the monster rares from the cities, Hood of the Magi. And it's not exactly amazing, but it's pretty alright. It gives some intelligence and dexterity bonus, you see. It's good for the mages, but we're probably gonna wear it as well now, because it's a little better than the helmet we've got now. Just wear it for now until we find something better than this. Anyways, where was I? Right, and yeah, you can usually tell also if you notice a lot of yellow numbers popping up again over the enemy's heads, it means your offensive ability is actually really good and you are dealing criticals, because those yellow numbers are the criticals. However, if you see a lot of red numbers above your head, it means the enemy is dealing criticals on you, and that means you need to get your defensive ability up. Also should definitely mention that offensive and defensive ability mostly applies to melee attacks. Well, it only applies to melee attacks. It doesn't apply to bows or staffs or any kind of skills or spells. It's literally just regular melee attacking. And you might actually notice a few bows in a game actually give offensive ability bonuses, and that is actually just a bit of a bug in a game, because those offensive ability bonuses on bows will not actually do anything, because bows don't get affected. And also something that I've checked just before doing this episode, I've just double checked on some information about the whole offensive and defensive ability thing, and I actually discovered something new even for myself. Apparently, offensive and defensive ability only affects physical damage, and also piercing, because piercing is part of physical, but it doesn't affect other damage types. I suppose that makes sense, because if you are just attacking, if it applies to your melee weapons, you are mostly going to be dealing physical damage. But you also should keep in mind that your weapon could be having, for example, an elemental bonus. It could have, for example, let's say 20 fire damage it deals per hit, and these kind of bonuses, which are non-physical damage types, they actually are not affected by offensive and defensive ability, which was something I didn't know. In case you're wondering what sort of suggested values to have for offensive and defensive ability, like, because it's quite a bit of an arbitrary figure, and you don't know like how much offensive ability, how much defensive ability is enough, and it is difficult to tell, because usually you just have to see red numbers popping up above your head. You need to put defensive ability, invest more in that, and if, for example, you see you're missing an attack quite a lot on the enemy, then you need the offensive ability. But yeah, there are some figures I could provide just from my own experience, what I've experienced. Like, I know for sure that when going to Act 4 in normal difficulty, since it's a really hard act, usually you have to be really careful, and I've learned that it's a good idea to go into Act 4 normal with around 400 defensive ability or higher, because at the very least it should be 300, because if you go any lower than that, you are going to get hurt. So at least 300, preferably 400 defensive ability, and then you just have to keep increasing it as you keep going further into the difficulties. And by early legendary, I'd suggest to have at least 700 defensive ability or so, and by late game you should be aiming for about 1000 defensive ability. And of course, for the offensive ability, you shouldn't let it lag behind too much either, because you don't want to be standing there for ages whacking on the same enemy and just not dealing enough damage or missing a hit completely. Offensive and defensive ability mostly the kind of thing that you don't want to get too low. You don't have to get it into super values, but the main thing is just not to let them get too low. That's pretty much it. Although if you are getting them into super values, you can get some really amazing builds. Like with the defensive ability, if you get to something like in a value of 2000, then you can pretty much avoid like more than 99% of melee hits directed at you. So you become immortal in regard to the melee hits. Although you'll still get hurt by the archers and the mages, but the melee attacks shouldn't even land at all. But yeah, like I said, you don't really need to get defensibility that high, so long as you get to something around 1000 by legendary, late legendary, you should be doing fine. And with the offensive ability, of course, if you get it to ridiculously high amounts, you'll be dealing some really dangerous criticals to the enemy. Although, once again, I've double checked on this, and there's apparently a cap that it's something like you can't get it higher than 50% chance. So once again, you can't make every single hit of yours to be a critical, otherwise that will just be too overpowered, and I'm sure the developers wouldn't want that. So yeah, as you can notice, offensive and defensive ability are pretty important. You don't want exactly to be giving tiny mosquito bites to the enemy, even if your general damage dealing could be good. But if your offensive ability is low, your hits will be like mosquito bites to the enemy. And with the defensive ability, you could be having good armor, good resistances, but your defensive ability is too low, and you're gonna feel the wrath of your enemies on your skin, and it's gonna hurt a lot. Hopefully I didn't forget to mention anything else in regard to offensive and defensive ability. And if you've got any questions, feel free to ask in the comments. And if you want to say anything to correct me as well, if I've made any mistakes, which I could, then feel free to correct me. We're still fighting in the Monster War camp, but we've almost cleared it all. You might have noticed that we've just been in a graveyard as well. There's a little graveyard area with the undead. So yeah, it's not all just satyrs. There's undead lurking around here as well. Another golden fleece. You might notice these boar men that we're meeting now. They're pretty tough enemies. They can handle quite a lot of punishment. Probably because of all the blubber just absorbs all the hits. Oh, that's satyr's face. We just knocked his face right into a wall. Right, so pretty much cleared the whole camp. But we should just go this way because there's a small group of satyrs around here. We've been dealing death all around, slaughtering the entire army. How is that even possible for one person? Yeah, if you notice, there's nothing really around here. All this scorched ground, and now we're in this destroyed ruin spot. But there's a lot more monsters around here. We've got to kill these undead if you notice they're quest related, because once you kill them, this guy crawls out. And let's listen to what he's got to say.
You're no monster. Oh, thank Olympus. You should have seen them. A whole army of the monsters. Centaurs and harpies and satyrs marching off. To where? Just a few still here. And the worst of them, they're lurking in the cave at the heart of the camp. Whatever you do, stay away. They'll turn you to stone. I saw it happen.
And that is probably one of the best bits of voice acting you encounter in the entire game. I just seriously love the way that guy just... You really do feel that he's scared. It's like...
The whole army of the monsters.
Whatever you do, stay away. They turn you to stone.
I saw it happen.
Right, and if we just look around these ruins, there's plenty of undead nested themselves around here. So we're gonna clear them all out, and there's these Orthoses who seem to be teaming up with them. We've been finding quite a lot of bat fangs lately. I mean, look at that, we've completed one charm, and there's another one starting to get built up. I mean, we're just knocking the teeth right out of every single bat. Maybe it should be a lesson for them. Stop trying to bite us. Ah, look at that, how well Squall clears out these groups of enemies. You might notice there are a few ratmen down below over there, and what I really like doing is I just like to do this. And if you remember what I said a few episodes back, if you wanna cast some of the skills like Squall or Eruption from Earth Mastery or anything like that, if you wanna cast them to really far away like this, you just have to shift click, like press shift and then click on use your skill. And it's pretty cool just killing the enemies where they can't really do anything to you. And look at that, undead lich has activated the Death Chill aura. You might have noticed it around him. Death Chill aura, if you know, from the Spirit Mastery, it's a really good buff. And we've been fighting quite a lot of monsters here, so we're gonna stop in a minute and continue in the next episode, because I think our woman here needs a little break from all the killing. And I am gonna actually just check through the gear and stuff as well, because I've been actually noticing the health potions, they were losing their effectiveness. Because thing is, if you keeping some of your old potions there, because you know as you go through the game, the potions get better and better. So if you're still using, let's say, lesser health potions when you shouldn't be, when you should be using like the regular health potions or the greater ones, then you might even find yourself getting killed because the lesser health potions will not heal enough. And that's why I'm gonna go and get rid of some of the lesser health potions and buy some of the more recent ones. And of course I'm gonna look if any gear needs changing, check with the merchants and stuff. What does this guy want? Get out. Right, still got a fair bit more to explore in this area. But alright. Yeah, let's stop around here. We'll continue in the next episode. I'll see you guys later. Bye bye!